So I just took a 4-hour bus and arrived to what is supposed to be the world's richest city.
340,000 millionaires.
One out of
If you look at certain statistics, New York looks like a place where billionaires are created and where millionaires are thriving. But there's a darker side to this reality. New York is the fastest shrinking city in the US.
The population of New York City fell by over 300,000.
So this means that in record numbers, people are leaving what seems to be a city of dreams on the surface. And now why is that? The answer to that question is really interesting, but also really complicated. And in today's video, I'm going to try my best to explain that answer to you. So I am in Brooklyn right now, and Brooklyn is definitely far from the wealthiest part of New York City. But I wouldn't say this area where we're at, like near Coney Island, is a poor place either, based on the cars and the houses that I'm seeing around me. But right now we're about to go to the center of the wealth of New York.
Unsurprisingly, the wealthiest part of New York is the part we mostly see on TV.
We're going to Manhattan.
Manhattan is one of the 5 boroughs that make up New York City. It serves as New York's economic and administrative center and is described often as the cultural, financial, media, and entertainment capital of the whole world.
When you think about New York and money, you probably think about one place, which is Wall Street. This is where all the iconic movies of people getting filthy rich in the city are usually based in.
Wasn't Rothschild originally handling the Fisher account?
Million against the AA.
I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every time.
So behind me is the New York Stock Exchange, which is the largest stock exchange in the whole world. Not far from here is the Bull of Wall Street, with a lot of people taking pictures in front and behind the bull. But interestingly, New York was not always the center of finance in the whole world, or even in the country. And actually the very first stock exchange established in the US was in a different city, in Philadelphia.
The Philadelphia Stock Exchange was established in 1790, a few decades before the New York Stock Exchange. Philly back then was the nation's largest city and the acting capital for a time. America's founding fathers got together to write the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution in Philadelphia, not in New York. But New York had the geographic advantage of having a better harbor and being the better port city. New York's superiority in commercial trade eventually became evident in the first half of the 19th century. As it was the first port of entry for many immigrants, New York became a convenient place for them to settle and start their businesses. And the city also developed a reputation for having innovative business enterprise. There was an unstoppable rise in the population of New York. By 1820, New York City had double the population of Philadelphia, and it has continued to be America's largest city since then.
Fast forwarding to the present day, a lot of the largest corporations in the whole world are headquartered in New York City, especially the financial corporations. So the New York Stock Exchange behind me is the largest stock exchange, like I mentioned before, with a market cap of $28 trillion. But the second largest stock exchange in the world, NASDAQ, is also based in New York City. But you'll be mistaken if you're thinking the finance sector is the only reason this city has so much money. There are a lot of other industries that go into making this place as rich as it is.
New York is often called the media capital of the world and is the largest media market in North America. It produces some of the world's most prestigious journalism with newspapers like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. It's home to the world's most popular magazines, including Bloomberg Businessweek, Rolling Stone, Time, Vogue. It's home to the 3 traditional major American television networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC. 3 of the US's big 4 music recording companies are also headquartered here. Think about how many movies and sitcoms are based in New York City. The world's biggest talk shows and comedy specials, from Saturday Night Live to The Tonight Show, a lot of them are based here. It's also a tech capital, and it was recently estimated that New York City hosted 300,000 employees in the tech sector. The city's fashion industry also employs approximately 180,000 employees, and it's host to the New York Fashion Week twice a year. The healthcare industry also employs more than 500,000 people in the city, and New York City receives the second highest amount of annual funding from the NIH among all US cities, only after Boston.
So another one of the industries that makes New York so wealthy is its real estate industry. For that, it's probably best if I go to another part of Manhattan. Okay, so New York has some of the most expensive real estate in the world, and the street I'm on, Fifth Avenue, is a prime example of that. This is usually ranked as the most expensive place on earth to like rent out retail space, going at $2,000 per square foot or like $22,000 per square meters if I'm doing the math right. And that is per month, by the way, not per year. This year, the street in Italy, Milan, was actually ranked an even more expensive place, and this was ranked number 2, but it's pretty expensive. You get the point. Now, the most famous real estate tycoon in the city of New York has to be Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump probably inherited most of his wealth, but the main business venture for the Trump family has been the real estate. And behind me on 5th Avenue is Trump's most expensive piece of real estate probably in the city of New York. Trump Tower. If you didn't know, Donald Trump was born and raised in New York City. And I believe this was the place where they hosted that old TV show that he was in.
You're fired. Go.
Now, if you're wondering where all the richest people in New York actually live, the answer is not too far from that tower. Right ahead this way.
Billionaires Row is a group of ultra-luxury residential skyscrapers and the neighborhood surrounding them near Central Park. And these are some really tall buildings.
So I am on Billionaires Row, and that building behind me with the Christmas trees right there, that has a unit that is listed as the most expensive unit in all of Manhattan. It's a triplex penthouse on the 129th floor. That was listed at $250 million at one point, I believe, and then they couldn't sell it at that price, so now they've dropped it down to only $195 million. This building, by the way, is called Central Park Tower and is 1,500 feet high, or like 470 meters high. It is the second highest building in the Western Hemisphere, only after the One World Trade Center, which is also in Manhattan. And it is definitely the highest residential building on the whole planet. Now, all these grand displays of wealth might make New York City look like the city of dreams, but all this is actually very related to why a lot of people are leaving the city.
So according to the New York Times, from April 2020 to July 2023, New York City lost almost 550,000 residents. That's over 6% of its population. Now let's try to understand all the possible explanations for this loss. The initial decline you can attribute to COVID because there were 45,000 confirmed deaths, and many businesses like restaurants and bars permanently shut down, which led to the unemployment rate doubling and arguably a lot of people leaving. But after that initial decline, COVID doesn't really make sense as a reason for the continuing decline. So the last 3 years also saw an increase in certain kind of crimes in the city, such as assaults. Total felonies in 2023 were the highest since 2006. So some say people started leaving because of these safety issues. Some also argue that people that could work remotely left from New York City because New York City had some really high taxes on top of the state taxes, and people are trying to save money. But people leaving for taxes is a very questionable argument because there's no evidence that the wealthy people were actually the ones leaving New York City. In fact, some research has shown that it's actually the poor people that have left New York City.
So let's try to understand the reason why so many people are leaving this city. So the main reason people are leaving New York City kind of has to do with the price of real estate that we were talking about earlier. I'm sure you've seen the viral videos on TikTok about rent in New York.
How much do you pay for rent in New York? How much do you pay for rent in New York? How much do you pay for rent in New York?
Manhattan has been setting new records for the average rent, with the current average rent being over $5,500. A recent study showed that New York had the highest percentage increase in household median rent over the last decade at a whopping 68%. Outside of California, New York has the worst ratio for how many years it would take for the median income earner in the city to buy a median priced house in the city. And recently it was found that 1/3 of New York City residents are spending up to half their income just on their rent.
But rent isn't the only thing that is expensive in the city. It's also a very expensive place just to eat. It's ranked as the second most expensive city on earth for getting an inexpensive meal.
Unfortunately, job growth in the city has also outpaced the city's housing construction for more than 40 years, which has led to a housing crisis with more and more limited housing. And you have to remember that New York City is also a couple of islands with overly developed land, so there's like not a lot of free space left to develop. And whatever houses are being built is now more and more becoming expensive luxury housing. And the ultra wealthy are buying up these houses because they often see this as a very safe real estate investment. Because of all of these things, Manhattan now has the world's largest wealth divide. The top 20% of people in Manhattan are making around $545,000 a year versus the bottom 20% of household income people are making around $10,000 per year. That's more than a 50 times difference. At the same time, Manhattan's getting richer. Millionaire residents went from being 1 in 36 to 1 in 24 in Manhattan recently. So while Manhattan's population isn't shrinking, the city's overall population is.
But the problem with income inequality in New York City is really a reflection of a nationwide problem. And let's think about what has been the response by the leading political parties of this country to this existential crisis of income inequality and wealth inequality. Instead of selecting the people that are trying to get to the heart of this issue, the political parties of this country have selected people who are either deep in the pockets of the wealthy people and the wealthy companies, or are part of the ultra wealthy themselves, and also stand to benefit the most from this income or wealth inequality. If you can't tell from the Bernie Sanders t-shirts you've seen me wearing over the years, I am still incredibly salty about everything that has happened since 2016. But back to my point, unfortunately, cities and states have discovered that problems like homelessness, problems like income inequality are hard to solve on a state level. So it will require all the people in the country coming together and making the right decisions and trying to solve these problems. The unfortunate reality for everyone living in the city right now is that it is very hard to stay here unless they have a high income job.
Note that all this data is from a year ago, and new data should be coming out very soon as I'm producing this video. So a few things might change after the video is released, but the gist of the information and the problem stays the same.
But honestly, me as a visitor, I love this city. This is one of my favorite cities in the world. It's probably because I grew up watching this city in every TV show that I watched, or in Marvel Comics, or everywhere else. Probably people like Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart have a contribution to this, but this city is really something else. On top of being, without a doubt, the most famous city on earth, there's just so much soul, so much history, so much culture, and all of it is at such a grand scale. There's really no place like it that I've ever been to. I remember the first time I came here, I was just awestruck, and I spent like 15 hours a day exploring the city. And I've come back so many times, and I still feel the same way. It's also one of the most diverse cities in the world, with people from every country. You could probably find food from every single nation or culture if you wanted to in the city. The only thing that's bad about this city is honestly this weather. It's freezing right now, but that doesn't last the whole year. So this is probably my 10th time in New York City, and I hope to keep coming back here many, many times as I get older. Let's just hope that the middle income people that live in this city get a chance to stay here as well. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, feel free to like it. If you want to watch more travel content, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And if you want real-time travel updates from me, feel free to follow me on Instagram @NadirOnTheGo. I'll catch you guys in the next video from somewhere else in the US.